So my plan is to kind of go through the presentation, but because it's such a small group, if you want to interrupt me, you don't have to raise your hand. You can just interrupt me. It's fine. I will remind me if I don't repeat your question, remind me to repeat your question so that the peanut gallery on Zoom can hear. So again, my name is Steve Bargdill. I've been a realtor with Keller Williams Coastal Lakes and Mountains since October of 2021. And it has been one of the best experiences I've ever had. I would say that job has actually made me a better person, which is weird to think that a career would do that for you, but it has. That's my contact information. Whenever you talk to a realtor and it's an official like business kind of meeting where you're talking about either trying to buy a house or sell a house, the first thing that they should present to you is what's called the brokerage relationship disclosure form. It is state law to present this form. This is not an official business meeting, but this is something, so like I'm not going to give it to you to sign, right? But it talks about the differences between who you are in relationship to the realtor. So the first side, which is right now you're a customer, it says I can't lie to you. And then the second side talks about the kind of services that I would do if you would become my client. One of those things is confidentiality. So if you tell me, hey, I've got like $500,000 in the bank and you have not signed with me, we're at an open house, and I could go to the listing agent, the guy that's selling the house, and go, hey, they have more money than what they're asking the house for. Like, we can maybe jack up price. Me personally, I would never do that. But that is a possibility, and I've seen that happen. There have been other issues where if you talk to me about your health or your job situation, and you need to move, you need to sell really quickly, and I tell my buyer client that because you let me know, so we can really lowball the offer, so that way they can leave really quickly because that's what they need to do. Again, that's not something I would personally do, but that has happened in the past. So just be aware of those two things, like where are you at with what you want to say and what you want to keep private kind of thing. Any questions about this form? There's a form provided by the state of New Hampshire. It's not a contract. It just says you're aware of your relationship. Okay. This is our New Hampshire market right now. Our average home price is $821,993. This is seller's market. I have a Facebook post to show you here in a little bit. The interest rates right now are average. I know a lot of people are like, they're really high, but I've got a slide that shows that they're like average 7.6 as of today. And New Hampshire is the fastest growing state in the Northeast right now. So there's a lot of demand for people coming into the market wanting to purchase. Specifically in Dover, you can see the home prices, the average home prices are $826,921. That's up from just a few months ago. And that should not say low interest rates. That should say average interest rates. They're not low, they're just pretty much steady. Buyer's market here in Dover, and also the growth rate is 1.12%. So we're adding people to the city, and wards 2, 3, and 5 are the fastest growing areas in Dover. Right now, currently, there's 1,151 homes for sale in the state of New Hampshire. That is wrong. It is 1,150. Like I was updating this slide this morning, and I finished an hour later, and the numbers changed within an hour. So we were like down one less. I don't know what it is currently right now as of this moment. So in Dover, there are 19 homes for sale, and that's actually where we lost that house. We're down to 18. Those are single family homes. So they're not duplexes or doubles or multifamilies, which right now in Dover, there are no multifamily homes available. So we kind of have to look outwards. There's one in Rochester we looked at this past weekend, and I know there was one in Barnstead as well. So out of those 18 single family homes in Dover, 5 are empty lots. So they're waiting to be built, and 2 are yet to be built. So they've got the permits and everything. They're ready to build the house. They just haven't built it yet. The big takeaway here is, though, in the state of New Hampshire, there's 6,571 realtors currently. That's a lot, right? So I'm assuming if you're in this room, you're thinking about selling a house. And my first recommendation to you is probably don't do it by yourself. You don't need a realtor, but don't do it by yourself. A realtor will average 26% more on the profit side of the house than doing it by yourself. But there's also 6,571 realtors. You should interview more than one realtor. The average homeowner getting ready to sell or buy, the first realtor they meet, that's the realtor they stick with. Really want to know what their plan is to get you into a house or to get you out of a house. What's their marketing plan? What value do they bring to you? These are some of the reasons why you would sell now. The interest rates are average. They're holding at 7.6 today as of this morning. And those, vary, right? And a lot of people compare that to the 1 and 2 or the 1 and 2% that we were seeing in the recent past. And I would describe that as a blip. Maybe we might see those again, but I don't see the rates falling any. If a lot of realtors look at homes as a investment. So if your equity is built up, you have that value appreciation, that's a good time to sell. Or sometimes maybe you need to pay down your debt. If you just need a smaller house, that kind of thing. So those are the average mortgage rates since 1972. And you can see 2022, the average right at the end of 2022 was 5.9, and the median line is 7.8. So at 7.6, we're kind of just average. We're not 1982, so that's good. These are some of the reasons why you would maybe hold off on selling. Like I said, there's 18 homes available in Dover right now. Where are you going to go? Do you have a plan? Right? That should be a discussion you're having with your realtor as well. What's your plan? I feel like this is small enough. I should ask. Are you looking to sell a house? Are you thinking about buying? What brought you here today?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm in the transition stage where I actually have another house. And I'm thinking about selling this and moving into another house.
Okay. So you're thinking about selling one house, he said, and moving into the other that you own.
Right.
Yeah. So that would be definitely a good reason. Like the supply is so low, when you saw the average price, that would be probably a good decision right now. And
Many expenses, so we are looking on a way to increase value.
oh, okay.
I can take that.
Okay. How long have you owned the home? They said they were. Hey, I need to repeat for the people online. They said that they just recently bought, but they want to know how to increase their value, right? So how long have you owned the home? 1 year. Yeah, you want to hold on to that for a while. You want to hold on to that for at least another year. Otherwise, the federal government's going to come in and take a lot of your profits off of that. It's called capital gains. So if you own a property and you've only owned it for a short amount of time, you want to make sure you're ready to sell. It's 2 years. 2 years. So you have another year to go. If interest rates are high, buying power drops down. So again, we saw the lower interest rates earlier in the last year, and now they're back up to where they kind of should be. So that actually reduces how much somebody could purchase a house. And also, if, in your case, maybe you have not built enough equity in your house where you've paid off enough of it where you're going to earn a profit at the back end, because you still have to pay for your loan. And the other reason why you might hold off is maybe you have some unfinished renovations, because unfinished renovations can actually bring the value of the house down. So those are things like, I tore up the bathroom and it's functional, but it's just not, it's not something you want to really use. Or the same thing with the kitchen. Maybe you tore down all the kitchen cabinets. That's going to bring down the value of the home. Okay. This is why I would tell you to buy a house right now. This is from a Facebook group, and you can tell I've blocked out people's comments or who posted, right? This is a fellow realtor of mine at Keller Williams. And he had a buyer that he was trying to help get into a house. And the house that they went after had 51 offers. So 51 people put in an offer, right? What do you think of that? What about anybody online? No comments. They're like, okay, all right. So in teaching school, they tell you not to tell people, your audience, that you're really nervous, because they don't know. You just know, I am really nervous for some reason. I have no idea why, but that's okay. But you have 51 offers on one house. A few weeks ago, I sold a house in Alton. It was a mobile manufactured home on its own land, and it went for $40,000 over asking. It was a cash offer, right? This is a really, really, really good time to sell, especially when you're in a position to sell. If you're looking to purchase, it can be a little bit more challenging. And we can talk about that next month, right? Is that right? So this slide says there's 10 easy steps to sell your house. I would suggest that they're not necessarily easy. Hire an agent. That's the first thing that I would tell you to do. Again, if you hire an agent, I would prefer if you hired me, but you don't have to. You can hire somebody else, right? The number is 26% more than if you would sell your house on your own. Here's a number I don't necessarily trust, because it's from the National Association of Realtors. I do not know where they get that research from, but that's where that research comes from. I have a couple buyer clients right now. They're interested in a house in Farnstead, and it is a house that's being sold by its own owner. They're not working with a realtor. I have called that person almost every week for the last month and a half. They have not answered the phone. They've not called me back. So I don't know why they're not answering the phone, but that is something you're going to need to end up fielding on your own. If you're trying to sell your own house, you're going to need to take phone calls. You will take a lot of phone calls. And in the case of you're trying to sell it on your own, you're going to get a lot of realtors calling you up going, hey, can I help you sell your house, right? Because we want, a lot of us want, we want the money. That's how we feed our families. We also want to help. The other step is you're going to want to decide price, understand how long it's going to take to sell. You want to renovate, repair. Yes, sir.
And you'll probably get into it, but how do you decide on
That's a really good question. You could kind of do it on your own if you like, but you have limited information to work with. So what we tend to do is we tend to look at all the houses on the street that your house is located in. And we go back 6 months, or we go back 3 months, or we do both and compare the numbers. And so, for example, right now on Horn Street, there are 2 homes for sale. Well, they're under contract. They're not for sale anymore. One's at the top of the street near Aldi's. The other one's at the bottom of the street near the school. Well, it's a little bit farther down. It's down by what is it, 6th Street or 4th Street? I think it's 6th Street. The one at the top of the street is a 3-bedroom and is listed for over $300,000. I don't remember the exact number. The one at the bottom of the street is a 1-bedroom and it listed for under $300,000, right? And that had to do with bedrooms. The number of bedrooms you have in your house tends to, the more bedrooms, the higher the price, right? My suspicion, and I won't know until the house at the bottom of the street actually closes, is that it's probably have sold for over 300. That's my guess. You always want to price your house below what everybody else is kind of pricing, because that's going to get attention on your house. More people are going to look at it. And then what happens is you get the 50 offers, and then you're put in a position where you get to decide which offer is best for you. Does that answer your question? It's a comparison game, basically.
Okay, so if I were to come to you and say, hey, I'm picking a number, $700,000 for my house. And would you be honest enough to say there's no way you would get that? Or how would you know if my number is realistic that I come to you? If you want me to decide my number?
Yeah, there's 2 schools of thought in that as a realtor. One is they're just going to take the listing because they need the listing. There's, again, over 6,000 of us, only just over 1,000 houses. So there's a good chance that they might run with that number, but they also might put a clause in the contract that says, hey, I have the right to reduce the price. So that's a really good question that you're going to want to ask your realtors that you're interviewing to sell your property. Is like, what would you tell me? A really, really top of his game person would ask you a bunch of questions about your house before we even met. And they would go and run the numbers, and they would show you what houses were selling for in the neighborhood, what they were selling for on the street, and kind of come up with a range of where you think where the house should sell at. So there should be a nice little report. That they're called comps. That's a fancy term for it. So he asked, I just realized I didn't repeat the question. He asked, how in the world did I come up with the price point for the home? Like who figures that out? If the actual owner says X amount of dollars, does the realtor just go with that? The realtor should come with information and kind of figure out what that price is. You can get a lot of those numbers off of realtor.com and Zillow.com. You can do those comparison works yourself. But like I said, those 2 houses on Horn Street, I don't know how much they've actually sold for yet, because I'm not sure if they've actually sold yet. The condo through the closing table. I know they're under contract. I know the realtors, I can call them and say, hey, they can't tell me, but they can say, yeah, it was a really good offer. And I know that was probably above, or they can be like, oh, it was okay. Like, it was okay. It was okay. And then that tells me that maybe the house didn't get as much money as they were asking for. And then I can also wait and to see what houses have closed, have totally sold, and how much they've sold above or below for it. A lot of that information is available online. The realtor is going to get it first. Did I answer your question? Okay. Somebody has a question on,
Yes, it says, can you speak to those cards that come in the mail offering to buy our home as is? We would do the renovations, etc.
okay, so the question was, can you speak to those cards that come in the mail offering to buy our as is? They would do the renovations. I'm not sure if I understand the question. Are you talking about the We Buy Ugly Homes cards that you see, or are you talking about, and this is Dan, is that who it is? Or are you talking about, I sent off a bunch of letters to condominium thing because one of my clients were looking for it and we lost out on an offer. And so I sent a bunch of cards and said, hey, name your price. That if you're getting it from an individual realtor is us just trying to find houses to sell, or houses for our clients to purchase. I don't know, Dan, can you clarify the question a little bit, or am I a little bit off track? I can't tell if he's typing, but I can see his comments up there. Okay. Yeah, I had a really sad situation earlier this year. I had a couple that they needed to get rid of their house. Their house was a really, really ugly house. It was just falling down around them, and I was like, please let me sell it for you. And they're like, no, we don't want you to come through. And I totally get that, but people are going to come through the house anyways. So what happened is they hired somebody that wasn't ugly houses, but it was the same kind of service. And they came in and said, we're going to offer you X amount of dollars for the house. And they're like, great, sign the paperwork. And then the next thing I know is they're calling me up and they're like, they're having an open house. They promised that they weren't going to have anybody walk through the house. I'm like, no, that's not what they promised. They promised you X amount of dollars. And so they had an open house. People came through their house. They couldn't do anything about it because they signed paperwork that said that that was what's going to happen. And then their house sold. So, but it sold from the people that said that they were going to give them X amount of dollars for the house, right? And it sold for X plus Y over what they were offered. It's called wholesaling. Actually, since I work with Keller Williams Coastal Lakes and Mountains, I'm not allowed to do that, right? So they're not going to give you the full amount of the sale. That's how they make their profit. I do offer a program where they will come in and they will buy your house for X amount of dollars, which will turn you into a cash seller. And then you will, whatever renovations that are needed done that you approved for prior, those renovations will be done. You can go look for your new home, and then with cash in hand. And then when they sell the house the second time after the renovations are made, they give you the cash back on the differential or the profit they've made. But all of that's spelled out in paperwork, and you know what you're doing before you go into it. It's like there's no, like, they do take a fee, and I want to say it's either between $3,000 and $5,000 for that fee. Did they answer his question?
Yeah.
Okay.
The ad says they will buy the house and make things easy for the seller because repairs, etc.
Yeah, nothing is ever easy in real estate.
And then they said, how much of a loss would you be looking at versus making it repairs on our home?
Well, depending on the house, you may not necessarily need to make the repairs. One of the questions they asked, well, I guess the people on chat can see chat, right? So if they're paying attention, can you make I go back and look. How much of a loss would we be looking at versus making the repairs on our own? It really depends on the house itself and it really depends on the situation. We went through the house that I sold that was $40,000 over on cash. They did some stuff that they probably shouldn't have done, like it was unpermitted work. They built some stairs that go down in their basement, and they're like, "Oh, we need to close that off," and they were just going to put a wall up. I'm like, "Don't bother with it. Don't bother with it." It didn't affect the price of the house at all. So depending on what the renovations are, you may not need to do any renovations, especially in this market. So really talk to someone that is going to walk through your house and answer questions honestly. Painting is probably a good idea. Yeah. Okay. Paint is really, really good idea. I'm going to stay with more of the neutral colors. So stay away from the reds and go more to the whites and eggshells. You really want to hit things that are going to be marked on the home inspection report. It depends on the condition of the flooring, right? So I don't know. I can't answer that question unless I've seen the floors. Yeah, I can't answer the question unless I've seen the floors. But like things like this are going to be marked poor on your home inspection report. And that's something you might want to consider, is actually maybe paying for a home inspection report. You're going to pay anywhere between $400 to $700, depending on the size of the house. And they're going to come through and they're going to find out what does need repaired. And I had a house in September that got marked poor because it didn't have the little drain things, the caps. Why am I losing my words? The thing that the stoppers. Thank you so much. That's like, so you can see there's no stopper here. It got marked poor. And I don't like, that's not a big deal. You just go to Walmart and pick up a stopper, right? So a home inspection report will point those things out to you. But those are really complicated documents. They are upwards of 40 pages. And if you don't know what you're looking at, it can kind of hurt. Dan, did I answer your question fully? Okay, that's fine. All right. One of the other things that can kind of hurt your home value, how many of you have Glade plugins or air wicks in your house? Yeah, so if your home inspector will come in and go, there's an odor problem in your house. Well, maybe you just like sandalwood. My wife doesn't, I do. We fight over that all the time. Right? Okay. This is another area that's going to increase your home value. You wouldn't think that it would, but it would be the quality of your photos. Okay. This is not my house. That does look like my laundry room. Like I asked my wife, I was like, can I take a photo? She's like, no. So I found one online. But I mean, that's what most people's laundry rooms look like, right? But that's not the photo that you want to present online. And just the way the photo is presented online will increase the value of your home. It's going to attract more people. It's going to push the interest. I like the Marilyn Monroe, I don't know what it is, velvet cloth towel, beach towel thing, but it's not a curtain, right? And there's nothing wrong with this room. This looks a lot like my daughter's room, right? Or my son's room, right? It looks fairly clean, but you're really going to want that photo to not look like that. Should you have furniture in the photos? Sure, but stage it, make sure the blankets are military fitted, that kind of thing. Put curtains up. So That'll increase your value. We'll go back a little bit. Yeah, so I don't know if you need renovations or repairs, but it depends on the situation, and it depends on how quickly homes are selling. It depends on the area. It depends on where you're at. This is a tough question. When to hire your agent? Okay. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Okay, so this is called absorption. Yeah. Is it important to repair the yard? What's wrong with the lawn? There's a lot of trees and a lot of pine needles. Or oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's a pile of dirt and there's a lot of trees and tree branches. I would say clean it up. Like if you can afford the landscaping, go ahead and do the landscaping because that's going to catch people's eyeballs. But the best thing to do is just to clean it up. Make sure the lawn is mowed. I know some realtors that will actually, if their clients are out of state, that they've gone down to Florida because it's too much snow, will actually come in and make sure the driveways and the walks are shoveled and that kind of thing. So you want to make it look presentable, like, yeah. But again, it also depends. It depends on the situation. The property in Alton had a lot of stuff in the yard, and they were in the process. Yeah, so it just depends. I don't know if that answers your question. Most of my answers are going to be it depends. Like right now, currently, I'm going to say it's probably going to depend less now in this current moment than it would, say, at a different time in the future if the market changes. This is what's called absorption time. This lets you know or gives you an idea of how long it'll take to sell a house, right? So we take the total homes currently available, which are 18. I think my math here is 19. And we take the total that are sold within a certain number of months. We normally do 6. And then we take that total available and divide by the rate. And so for Dover, currently at 19 homes, in the last 6 months, 39 sold. So average time on the market is 6.5 days. 6.5 days to sell your house. How long does it take to sell a house? Way longer than 6.5 days. So it goes back to the questions, when do you hire your real estate agent? We're so desperate for work right now that if you said, I want to go live this weekend, somebody's going to take that. Somebody will take that. If you told me, I'd be like, okay, we need like a month lead time at least, because we're going to clean up the yard. We're going to paint, Dan, we're going to paint, right? Or, and then I have to get my marketing together. I got to get somebody to come in and take photographs. I'm going to have to get someone to, maybe we're doing a home inspection, because a home inspection can be kind of weaponized in contract negotiations where they're like, oh, there's a water stain on the ceiling, so I want $1,000 off the price that we agreed on so we can fix the water. Does that make sense? You need that time. to gather your marketing materials and put together a really solid plan to go after it. So I would suggest that, yeah, sure, it can take you 6.5 days to sell a house once it's listed. There should be some prep work before, and your realtor should be able to walk you through that. And even if you're selling on your own, you should do some of that prep work. Okay, I talked about that. So when you list the home, what happens is the realtor will take your house and all the information about it, and they'll stick it on the MLS. It's the multiple listing system. Here in New Hampshire, it's called, I think, Paragon. And that's ran by a company called Prime MLS. And what happens is after it goes into that database is it propagates out to realtor.com and Zillow and all the other aggregators. It'll actually even show up on my own website as well. And it's just kind of an automated thing. And that's when you're live. This is when you probably get the most attention, is right up front. And that's why you want to do all that prep work before you list your house, so that way you're ready to rock and roll. A lot of times you'll see open houses 3 or 4 days after house is listed. Well, you didn't see all the prep work that went in before that. There's some other marketing things that happen, right? Like if I were to hold an open house, one of the things I do is I go around and door knock on the neighborhood and say, hey, I need to apologize to you right now because we're having an open house and we expect there to be a lot of traffic on your street. We'd love to have you come and check out the house. Sometimes we like to do what's called a pre-open house, where we're inviting just the neighbors to come in and look at it. Like maybe we know you don't want to buy another house in the neighborhood, but maybe you have a friend that you would like to be neighbors with. Who would you like to move to this neighborhood? So there's some marketing steps that would take place in that arena. Yes.
A long time ago. After you put your house, like you list the house, don't a bunch of real estate agents like snoop in on the house that first day or something? Like a big house, caravan. Is that still common?
Sort of. I don't know what you mean by long time ago. Back in the day, it used to be somebody could list a house, and then you'd see 4 or 5, 6, 7, 12 different for sale signs in the front yard, and that's because the owner of the property hired several real estate agents to try to sell the house, and whoever sold it first is the one that got the commission. We don't do that anymore, which is thankful. There's things called broker open houses. Yeah, we still do that. In fact, Melissa Lesniak here in Dover is huge with broker tours, and she'll take like a caravan of realtors from house to house, and that's an amazing program. So it can happen. You don't have to be on that. That's part of the marketing that your realtor would do. It's kind of how up to your realtor and you personally on how you want to handle that. So, yeah, it's a little bit more controlled. It just means that the realtors are coming through the house and they're not coming through with clients. So it's just and a lot of times I try to go to as many open houses as I can, so that way I know what the houses look like on the inside, right? There's a house that's not for sale. It's on Arch, or is it in Washington? I think it's on Washington. I've not been inside of it. I've just heard about it. I want it so bad. It's not for sale. If they're watching, they could invite me in. They have dragons on either side of the fireplace. I don't want to see that so bad, right? The only reason why I know that is because I've talked to other realtors, right? The only reason why I know the houses look on the inside is because I've been inside them. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why they do that. It makes it easier for comparisons when you're trying to figure out what a price is. This is settling on the final offer. Do I have a slide? Yep.
Is there a disadvantage to showing a house as payment only or versus buying an open house?
No, it's just different. So the question was, what was the question? The question was, is there a disadvantage to showing a house by appointment versus having an open house? They're both just different. They're different, right? So the house that I sold in Alton, it had a lot of stuff in it. They weren't hoarders or anything like that. They just had a lot of stuff. They were in the middle of packing up. They weren't prepared or ready for an open house. They had to get the stuff emptied out because there was just not a lot of walking room for a lot of people to come through all at one time. We sold that house by appointment only. We only let people come through one group at a time. We did have an open house scheduled for down the road. We never made it that far because it's sold under appointments only. This past weekend, I was at a multi-unit in Barnstead, and the realtor there was only letting groups come through by appointment because it was such a big place and she was walking us through individually. If she had held an open house, she would probably needed a team to come in and watch both parts of the house. An open house is probably the quicker way to do it, right? So the appointments that we did in Alton were over 4 days. We had over, I can't remember the numbers, the high 20, we had over 20 appointments just come through over 3 days, 3 or 4 days. And they were all in the evening, and I always had to kick the owner out and make sure the scheduled time worked and all that stuff. With an open house, you can have as many people come through within a day or two, and you can get a lot more traffic condensed. If that makes sense. So it depends on the needs of the seller, and it's not dependent on the needs of the realtor. I like open houses because what happens is that they're a lot of fun. I get to meet a lot of people. I get to meet a lot of realtors. I oftentimes get to meet the owner's friends on top of that. And then bonus for me, people will come through that are not represented by an agent, and I can market towards them a little bit. So I love open houses for those reasons. They're just fun. But an appointments are a little bit more controlled, right? I don't have the opportunity to do more marketing because the people that are coming through are normally already represented by an agent. It really is dependent upon the needs of the seller. What does the seller want to do? The nice thing about the brokerage disclosure form is that it says that I need to do things in your best interest if you become a client of mine. So if it's in your best interest to do appointments, I'm going to do appointments. If you want to do an open house, I'm going to do an open house. So it's really up to you. I'm going to lay out the benefits and the not benefits of doing either or, and then just let you decide. So when you come to close, that's when you sit down, or when you're accepting an offer. The offer should reflect true market value. So if you're getting multiple offers, you're going to pick the one that fits your needs best, right? So maybe money is not an issue. Maybe it is just time, right? In your case, I'm assuming it's just going to be money because you have a place to go, right? There are 6 basic categories that address timing and financial considerations. When is the home inspection done? It's normally done within 10 days of accepting an offer. And then you have to make sure the the application for the loan gets sent into a mortgage broker all in time. And so all of these different things in the paperwork have to happen. If you've got a good realtor, they're going to give you a step-by-step guide. And I know for my case, I've got some buyer clients right now. We are going to close in June. We put an offer in, I don't know, it feels like it was longer than 2 weeks ago. But I've called them almost every day, right? So there's some constant communication. Kind of running out of time. This is when people are going to start asking for price reductions on your house. It's after you've accepted an offer, they've done a home inspection, and they found some of these bigger, larger things with the house, like cracks are crumbling in the foundation, in the house over the windows, water stains, faded or worn shingles, plumbing or electrical problems. It's all going to bring down, these are the items that are going to bring down the price of your home. If you need to do renovations and you can afford them, these are the renovations you do. And these are oftentimes renovations that you don't necessarily see. So it's kind of hard to be like, okay, I'm going to do this. You see, oftentimes you'll see listings that say, this home is being sold as is. There's never a house ever that's being sold as is. There is always room for negotiations. There are ways to mitigate some of those negotiations, like, for example, having a home inspection done before you go on market.
Have you ever heard of the listing agent for the seller and the agent for the buyer working for the same real estate company?
Yes, all the time. So the question was, does the agent ever work for an agent that works for the buyer and an agent works for the seller? Do they often sometimes work for the same real estate company? This is the really cool thing. Yes, sir. Yes. Okay. So in the first case, when you have two agents and one's working for the buyer and one's working for the seller, and they're both agents are working for, let's say, Keller Williams, Coastal Lakes and Mountains. There's over 700 of us at Keller Williams between New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, and Vermont. You're going to run into us. We all operate like franchises. I don't work for Keller Williams, Coastal Lakes and Mountains. I'm affiliated with them. Okay. So it's like kind of like the Dunkin' Donuts on Central Ave and the Dunkin' Donuts out on 108. They're owned by different people. They're selling the same iced latte, but they're different people. When you hire me, you're actually not hiring me. You're actually hiring Keller Williams, Coastal Lakes and Mountains. And then Coastal Lakes and Mountains actually contracts with me to represent them. The really cool thing is we got this thing called designated agency, which means we're not going to share information between other realtors in the same brokerage office. Does that answer the first part of the question? Is that clear? Okay, all right. The second part of the question is, when I first started out, I had a house. I was so proud of myself. I got my license in October. I signed my first client in November, and we sold the house in February. And I had buyer clients and I had seller clients. And I thought the house that my sellers were selling would be perfect for my buyers. And I was like, hey, come look at this house. Come look at this house. Because that way I would get the entire commission. I would get the commission from the buyer side and I would get the commission from the seller side. It would be a bigger paycheck for me. I was very pumped and excited. And my buyers looked at the house and they changed their mind. And that was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me personally. There are realtors that will work both sides of a deal, and good for them. I'm not that great. And so if I would ever come into that situation where I'm selling your house and my clients currently are looking at your house, what I would do is I would continue to work with you. I signed you first, right? And then I would tell my buyers to go work with another agent. And I would ask, because I can't, because what, there's a conflict of interest. You're supposed, as soon as you're in that situation where you're representing both buyer and seller, you have to remain neutral. I can no longer negotiate on your behalf, and I can no longer negotiate upon the buyer's behalf. All I can do is deliver messages back and forth. And I already know that I like you, and I'm working with my buyers, so I already know I like them. And that I can't, me personally, I would never do that. Can it be done? Yes. Yeah. And that's a really good question to ask the realtor that you're going to interview to sell your house is, do you do this? And there are several agents that I would recommend my buyers to work with. So that way it wouldn't get that conflict of interest. I'm just not a good mediator. I'm a good negotiator, but I know where my strengths are. So, well, it's 7:30 already. One of the things you want to keep in mind is that when you sell a house, it's not free. You're gonna be prepared to pay some money. Agent commission fees, so whatever you agree to pay your agent. There's a transfer tax. It's about 75 cents per every $100 your home is worth. This is really the thing that upsets a lot of people because they charge that transfer tax to both the seller and buyer individually. So on the same house, the house gets taxed twice. There can be title search fees, recording fees, home warranty costs. A lot of this stuff comes out of the buyer's pocket, but not always. And then you just want to make sure you have all your documentation. Whoa. Close on the sale. That's when you provide the keys, the garage door openers, all that stuff. You get a great big settlement statement that says how much you received, how much you paid off your loan, all that good stuff. You get a check if you're selling the house, unless you owe more on your mortgage than what the house is being sold for. So that's it. This is the first time I've gotten through this entire presentation, which I'm really shocked by. Any questions or thoughts or ahas or?
So, if you're thinking of selling your house, and I know you went over renovations and stuff like that, say you're like a year away from doing it, and you're deciding whether to make a capital investment in your house. Like, saying, not that it needs to be done, but maybe I want to renovate, have a new deck put on the back of the house, or something like that. Is that a good idea, or is that just, let the new owner deal with that? Like, when do you say, I'm not gonna upgrade anything else in my house?
Yeah. A deck is amazing if you're going to live there and you're going to enjoy the deck. But a deck does not actually increase the value of a house.
I mean, the deck's
Yeah.
already there. I mean,
Yeah. If it's already there and it's falling apart and you need to repair it.
Well, in terms of like, Peter's 10 years old, it works fine, it gets serviced every year. Yeah, it can be more efficient. Do I want to invest in that or not? Like, how do you make those kinds of investments?
A lot of it depends on, like, so the question was, how do you know when do you make renovations and do you make renovations? Do you make those capital investments in the house? It really depends on the market, and it really depends on what the repair is, right? A fresh coat of paint, for example, that is negligible. It's really cheap, right? A few $100s. If you hire somebody, maybe a couple thousand, right? That's going to increase your value more than it would be to say, put a deck on a house that doesn't have a deck, which is weird to think paint is worth more than a deck is. But it has to do with livable square footage, and a deck is addition to and not part of, if that makes sense. It is attached, so it still goes with the house. It really depends on what the market's doing. What is the market going to be doing for a year from now? I have no idea. Nobody does. Anybody that says it, that you know what the market is going to do 3 weeks from now, they just don't know. They don't know. They can look at trends and they can take guesses, but a year from now versus now, if you're in Dover, I don't know which town you are, you're in Dover, 6.5 days to sell. Do you need to make the repairs?
It's not so much a repair, upgrade.
Or upgrade. Yeah, whether it's an upgrade, like if it's an upgrade where you're like, oh, I want to put a new roof on because I just want I want solar panels. You don't really need to do upgrades. Leave that to the buyer. That's my personal opinion. You talk to other realtors about that. The real big thing is, I would suggest get a home inspection and find out the things that are on that home inspection that are marked poor, and fix or repair or upgrade those items. That's probably the most important thing when you're thinking about selling your house. Oop, got another question online. It depends, right? That seems like it, like what do the counters and cabinets look like now, right? Are they serviceable or are they falling off the wall? Have they been partially renovated or partially upgraded and the project's not finished? Like it just really, it depends on the situation, but most of the time it's just not. And especially in this market, I don't know what it's going to look like in a year from now. We're in such a housing shortage. The state of New Hampshire needs roughly 90,000 homes to catch up with the growth of the state. And that also talks about people that are here right now, not necessarily people that are moving in. So unless something changes legislatively or locally with zoning laws, we're going to be in this situation for a while. Yes, sir.
What are the typical conditions? How are they negotiable?
They're negotiable, and I cannot tell you. So if I told you what the typical commissions are, that would be called insider trading, and that's what Martha Stewart went to jail for. Can I talk to you about that on an individual one-on-one basis? Yes. Can I do it publicly? No. And they're always changing. I know what I charge, right? I know what some other people charge, and everything's negotiable. So
That's sort of a follow-up. If I were to sign with you, how long am I stuck with you?
No, you did. So he asked when he could, if he hired me, when could he fire me? That's what he asked. And so the contract that I would sign with you is normally for a year, but I also let people know that they can fire me whenever they want. So if 3 months into it, you're like, Steve, you're the worst realtor ever, you can fire me. It's fine. It's fine. I know there are some contracts out there where there's some fees related to that and whatnot, and I'm not one of those people. Yeah, you can fire me whenever you want. I've only had one person ever fire me, so it's okay. I'm still friends with them, so it's all right. They still get my emails. I don't know why, but that's okay.
I don't want to be awful.
No, it's fine.
So
The library closes at 8:30, so it's fine.
You constantly get these emails from Redfin and Tablet and Zillow and, you know, your home is worth this.
Yes.
How realistic is
That is a question that puts me in a difficult situation because Zillow is a brokerage.
that? I
And
just use that as an
right, right. I think Redfin is a brokerage as well. Not positive, but I think they are. And I've signed paperwork. It's called the Realtor Ethics. I'm in the middle of taking an ethics class. I have to do continuing education every year, every 2 years to keep my license. And you're not supposed to speak bad about other brokers. I would say that most of those online estimates are not necessarily as accurate as they could be. And I think that's because they're ran off of algorithms. I think algorithms are amazing. I love algorithms. I think they get you in the ballpark, but I don't think they get you to first base. So I think it's a good starting point. And to sit here and tell you that I don't look at those numbers is like, I look at those numbers, right? I look at it, all the numbers that I can to kind of come up with what price point should your house be at. Oftentimes I'll look at those estimates and I'll try to price underneath those actually, because that's going to get more people. It's a marketing strategy. Yeah, price is a marketing strategy. Yeah. It'd be worth putting what on windows? I'm not wearing my glasses. Oh, shutters? I'm surprised I was able to see that without my glasses. I it's so a home inspector is going to come through and they're going to be like, they're not going to mention it, right? It makes the house look prettier. It's going to make the photographs look prettier. Is it worth the investment? I don't know. Probably my guess would probably, and this is my opinion, would be probably not. Right.
The more important area to repair or based on what the people are looking for.
What are the most important areas to repair? It's really stuff that you can't necessarily see, right? So if your water heater is going kaput, you're gonna want to replace that or repair that. I don't know what else is on the screen. Water stains. If there's a leak, you want to make sure you get that fixed. So there's a lot of the more hidden issues with the house versus the more cosmetic features. It goes back to the question that was from the online crowd: is the kitchen, cabinets, and is that important? Depends if it's a structural issue or not versus whether it's just eye candy. Any other questions? Cool. You're welcome. Awesome. Thank you so much for all of you coming, people online, the people in person. Amy, thank you so much for running this.